Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Overreaction Time, the podcast where we overreact to free agent signings.
Is that going on right now? Is that a thing that's happening?
At spreadsheets, bro.
Spreadsheets on spreadsheets.
I'm David, Steven, Eric. We're here, the usual crew. League of Legends free agency officially opened what time is it? Almost 10. So like 53 hours ago, I think it was 5 o'clock on Monday night Central Time in the U.S., midnight Tuesday in Berlin. And stuff's been going. The rumor mill has been popping off. Some things are confirmed, many things are not confirmed, and there is much spice. So I have, and with some assistance from Eric and maybe Steven,
I looked at
um,
it.
Steven looked at it. That's kind of what I thought. We have 62 different names of people who are um, notably. I'm gonna make it actually. It's gonna be 59 because I'm deleting a couple here that we don't have confirmed news about yet. I'm gonna leave one. I'm gonna leave two of these free agents here for us to talk about because they're important and notable to discuss. But 59 different players that we're going to talk about. They are in no particular order. We've been scrambling this spreadsheet and adding to it, but it looks real pretty. Um, Steven can go take a screenshot of it and put it somewhere if he really wants to, because it does look really pretty.
It is very nice. I would just link it out if you're comfortable doing that.
I don't care.
Yeah.
We'll do it because I'm probably going to keep updating it just so I can have some kind of idea how this shit works.
Hell yeah.
um, Let's see here. So we're going to start from the top, we're going to start with the biggest name, which is the top of the list, which is Perks. So Perks is, I don't think Vitality have actually confirmed any signings yet. Um, he tweeted a GIF of contract signing earlier today, so I suspect we may officially hear about this tomorrow.
Proof
But
enough.
the reporting is that Perks is moving from Cloud9 in NA back to Europe to join Team Vitality, who are one of the biggest movers and shakers of this free agency period of any team in the world. So we talked last week about the contract prison thing, but we talked enough about that. Let's talk about this. This is huge for Vitality.
Yes. But I am creating a new ranking that I've come up with all on my own. And any European that comes over to North America for a big check, plays 1 year and then signs elsewhere, is now a bounty hunter. That is their new status in my mind. We've seen it too many times. There's several bounty hunters that are just looking for fat checks and then moving around, and Perks is now a bounty hunter. So
It's almost like our first two names both apply to this category, and you're salty about one of them.
I'm pretty. Yes. I think salty is the right term. You're right. But yeah, I was discussing with one of my buddies about Cloud9. He's a big Cloud9 fanboy, and very hyped. And I'm just like, what? As a Cloud9 fan, are you happy with Perks? And then to just let him go over to Vitality? Is Vitality like secured in like bringing someone who's just a show off check collector? Eric? It sounds
Eric?
like
Well, as far as the I was muted. As far as the payoff to C9, they did make it out of groups, 2 quarters, where they did get smacked, but it's a return to NA out of groups. That's success in many ways. They got out of a group of death in the process, like a super competitive group scenario. So like I'd be happy if all you're thinking of is results. 1 year results is satisfactory with Perks. They make MSI, they go to Worlds, they make it out of groups. They're the only NA team that does. Like that to me looks like success in a vacuum. Now as a C9 fan, that makes perfect sense to me, as long as the team isn't like completely bankrupt in this off season. And so it doesn't appear to be that, that they're completely going native, and we'll maybe talk about that later. But like that's like the big thing is like if they seemed really deficit in this off season, or if the league had some kind of catch up mechanic like in the NFL or some other league where by overspending you reward the weaker teams, maybe that would do something. But as it is now, it's just like I think the results, if you look at it in a vacuum for a season, were solid, and so now it's where do they go from here?
Which we're going to talk about because they've made some fascinating moves of their own that are down this list a little bit. I think Perks never really looked right this year. He never looked like the player he was in Europe. He has mentioned at times that he has struggled personally with being farther away from family and being not in Europe, which, again, to move continents for the first time in your life is not something I have any personal experience with, and I can't imagine it's easy. So, bounty hunter or not, I have to like respect the want to go home. Now, for Vitality as an organization, like they haven't splashed the cash like this, really, not to the level that this is with Perks, and we'll go ahead and just say Alfari is the second name on our list. Like this is paying, I would assume, premium money to get two of the absolute best
bounty hunters,
solo laners
oh yes,
of European descent that exist. Bounty hunters or not. And this is an organization that has notably struggled, has obviously never won a title in Europe, which is still a very exclusive club that Mad Lions have now joined. And this is a statement of, we're not content going sixth and going out in the first round of playoffs. We want to win this league right now. And based on the other moves around Europe, they're the favorites. Like, they're the favorites right now.
So going into last year's offseason, like I was furious with Vitality for still having Sajinda in the starting roster, as well as a couple of other players who were super underperformers all of last year. And then halfway through the year, then they completely shake things up. They sign Selfmade, so they get a jungler for the first time. They sign Light Leader to try and just have someone who can shake things up, play assassins in a carry playstyle. They sign Crown Shot so they can get a consistent damage source. And then the problem with where they end up then, though, is that they only have 6 months with this comp of like all super aggressive players that they sign purely to try and shake things up. And it sounds like they wanted to do a super roster like this last year, but then with the way the off-season works in NA and EU, everyone was already accounted for before they started looking. So this year, it seems like they were fully prepared, and they went ham right off the bat, which is a good way to use your biggest pocketbook out of any of these teams.
Steven, how does it feel to lose Alfari?
Who? Yeah, who is that player
You're,
that we had
Julie,
for three-fourths of his contract?
If I was producing this show and I'm not, I would go back to previous episodes of you talking about Alfari dad decking all over NA and just put them right here and how happy you were with his performance about 2 months ago. Just to not let you talk out of your ass.
No, I mean, when he finally showed up after his whatever happened, and that's, I don't know. We had Broxa, and then we had whatever happened with Alfari. We got really far, but I mean, not any further than we ever get before. So, I don't know. We didn't win a title. We didn't get any further in Worlds. So, I mean, as fun as it was to watch him clap all the top laners, I mean, we didn't get anything extra for his donkey-sized contract, unless I'm confused.
Couldn't tell you. Eric, what do you think about this move for Alfari? Seems like it makes sense, right?
I think that it's pretty clear that both of these teams from NA that we've talked about so far were dysfunctional in several ways. and now the org is attempting to make big shakeups to try and change the narrative and change the faces. One of these teams is doing it in a very different way than the other one, and we'll maybe talk more about teams later. But Alfari going back to me smacks of him being unhappy with management as well as with players who he was forced to work with in the scene. I'm kind of curious to see if the super server that's hypothetically being built in LA would have changed his mentality going into this off season if Core JJ had made that go through earlier, if that had changed anything. But to me, like getting a chance to play with Perks on a super team in EU when there's so much blood in the water over there right now, seems like a great personal opportunity. I'd have a hard time turning that down as far as like chances of making top 3, getting to Worlds again. It seems easier there than it does in NA now.
Well, and particularly with the knowledge that G2 is falling apart, regardless of like it's caps and some wards, they have a little bit of TSM to them at this point. And Fnatic doesn't know what they're doing. So like you have the existing powers of old that are down. You have Mad the champions who have gotten completely torn apart. And it's open season. Like this is a huge opportunity to get a statement. And like if you take a new or anytime anywhere in global League of Legends, but particularly in NA and EU, if you take a new organization to win a title in a domestic region, that is a big deal. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how you do it. Like Mad winning a title is huge. It's a big deal. So for them, and now to add, as I fold in Carzzy into this with the descent of Mad, Carzzy is the third piece of this Vitality roster. That's another huge, enormous upgrade. Like they like unless something weird comes out of left field here, they are the prohibitive favorites in EU to me.
This is pretty, I guess, what the definitive super team. Yes, is that valid? Yeah.
The only team that looks close at this point is potentially Fnatic, which I have very high expectations for going into next year. But Vitality is definitely the super team. Looks to me like definitely should have had the most expensive roster going into next year. And definitely is built the most on known talent, where a lot of these other teams are built more on rookies for the most part, or on just like continuing to bank on ERL stepping up.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all these pieces kind of add together. And realizing, speaking of Fnatic, that I forgot to add a name to the spreadsheet, so I'm adding one.
Typing.
Fnatic top lane things. But I do think like Fnatic's gonna be interesting. G2 still has arguably the best player in the region, Perks and Alfire returning or not in caps. So like they're always gonna have potential. We'll have to see how Flack adapts to playing at the highest level. I think that's an interesting one. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's gonna be interesting to see. But like going into the season, based on reputations, based on what we know, Vitality's the favorites. The end. Now is the portion of the program where we get to talk about Team Liquid. Because
TLEU
talking about Alfari leads us to the TL roster changes. So first we start with Bwipo, who is moving back to the top lane and moving from Fnatic to Team Liquid. Steven, how do you feel about Bwipo?
I'm just glad we have the support staff that he comes with, and that knowing that we that's coming too is a real. It raises my spirits. Jokes aside, memes aside. I hope there's a plan to make these players comfortable. We can't just keep having the same merry-go-round of, I don't want to be here, I want to go home. Okay, but you came here for X million dollars to play a video game, professionally. So just like at least stick it out for the year without having issues. So there's that concern. I mean, he's a good player. Obviously, he can role swap. He can do a lot of different things. But if we're just going to keep bringing over EU talent and then they're just not happy here, that's the problem. You have to solve that. So I'm hoping that we have a plan to make them like a core JJ or like a Hooney who comes over and is like, wow, like I'm having a great time and I'm performing and I don't really want to leave. So as long as that happens, I will withhold my expectations. But if we don't have a plan as a team to support these players that we pay to come over here and play League of Legends, I don't know why we keep doing that.
Eric, how do you feel about Whippo coming to NA to play top lane?
I really like Whippo as an individual. I think that unlike Alfari, Whippo doesn't force you into a specific play style as far as the NA scene goes. He's much more flexible. He's much more willing to team fight, or I should say, he's much more willing to put himself less ahead in lane to play a better team fighting champion and role. Whereas you were seeing with TL, especially against good teams, one of the issues they were running into was Alfari was playing Jace or some kind of solo lane split push style champion, and then still trying to join up and force team fight advantages to hard carry some of his in-team lanes through games. And it turns out that that was a losing strategy. They couldn't make it work. So now at the highest level, and so now they have Whippo, where that's not going to be your problem. Unfortunately, I think this team has a lot of other problems. But on the bright side, like on paper, the mentalities of these players should lend itself to them having a better team fight presence and grouping up for major objectives.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about play style, the next person we're going to talk about has a little bit to do with changing the play style of a team around them. Let's talk about the Team Liquid mid lane position, shall we? Eric, how do you feel about swapping Jensen for Bjergsen on the team in 2022?
It's really good for winning NA. That's how I'll say it. This is a great move if your goal is to win NA. This is a great move for going 0-6 in groups at Worlds. So is the other side of this. So so if Team Liquid's goal is to maintain #1 team in NA and regular season performance, that's what this decision looks like. Because you have signed the GOAT in NA. Good luck other teams trying to win in a best of 5. The Zillion will come out and you'll look really embarrassing. As far as like TL, like aspirationally, I struggle to see what the end goals of this team could be other than winning NA, because it sure doesn't do anything else. Steven,
Mr. Team Liquid fan, how do you feel about swapping Jensen for Bjergsen in 2022?
I think it's interesting. I get the play style. I get that Jensen wasn't necessarily performing like super well. He seemed kind of like frozen in time and wasn't really improving. So I kind of predicted that he was getting swapped out. I didn't predict it was Bjergsen coming out of retirement. It'll be interesting to see if he comes in with a fresh mindset. But if you make these moves and get anything less than LCS championship, I don't see the point. I agree with Eric. Like, this isn't something that like they're going to improve and like we're going to do really well and then like this is going to become like a really mesh team. It's these are known elements, these are known quantities, and the question is, do they play well together, and do they have to go to Worlds? They have to win at least one split handedly for this to be a success in my book.
How do y'all feel about Jensen being teamless now?
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that either these other teams who are suddenly like resurging the Korean import list, because what we've seen this offseason is NA going back to importing a lot of Korean players, only this time going for young Korean talent rather than old Korean talent. So it's like going for players from the amateur scene in Korea or from the sub teams, or going for like the super young players from LCK rather than going for, the near to retirement players. Like, the normal NA import from Korea this year would be like Keen or help me out here. Who'd be another great one? Fly coming back over or something like
Closer is
nonsense.
going to be my
Well,
answer to this question because I think he would be very, very interesting in an NA team.
yeah, well, the closer is a younger player, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm talking like the typical NA import from Korea
Like
is like
Bang,
somebody.
Larkin.
Another time.
Yeah, is like somebody who's at the end of their ropes, and is like, all right, I'm getting tired of getting beat up by these young kids from solo queue in lane. Let me go to NA and just win because I know more about the game than everybody else.
I looked
Uh,
bad in lane in NA. He's a
yeah.
bad example of this.
Well, that's the point though, is that they
Yeah.
come over then, and then they don't necessarily look that great. And but only Core JJ is like the exception to the rule
Yep.
in a lot of ways. And so, um, I'm just I hesitate on these young imports over Jensen. Playing NA native mids who are young over Jensen, I'm cool with. There's actually a really strong tier of amateur mids up and coming under one of the ones we're probably going to talk about later in the show. And so, like, taking a risk there makes a lot of sense to me, especially for teams that are lower in the standings. Now, there are a couple of rosters which are absolute trash and would definitely benefit from signing Jensen now that things have shaken out a bit more. But like, I can understand this positioning of like what's going
Like
on.
for
And
example, would you rather play Blaze over Jensen as Golden Guardians? I would.
as Golden Guardians, I would play a Blaze over
Yeah.
Jensen
Like
because like he started looking really good last split. You're building talent. He's cheaper. Like, there's a lot of pluses for keeping a Blaze in this roster, especially with other people he's played with before.
or
There's
like
a
the other thing that I think you were you was that a JoJo reference?
It's a JoJo reference. Like, I would play JoJo over Jensen as EG, like every time.
JoJo is not on the list, so let's talk about him right now because this is a good spot for it. So EG is promoting JoJo Pyun from was he Academy last year or Amateur last year?
They got him to Academy from Amateur last year.
So he's come up through their ranks and is promoted in place of Jizuke, which is a bold move on paper since Jizuke had probably the best split of his career last year
He
and
was
was
number
deservedly in the
one.
running
He
for
was number
MVP.
one mid. Yeah,
Yeah, like number one all pro mid. So on paper, this looks kind of absurd, but EG's mantra and they and 100 Thieves have been like focused around developing NA talent as any organizations in the league, particularly since Kelsey's gotten to EG. Like they've been all about this. They've been developing native players great. And we're not going to talk about 100 Thieves at all because they haven't made any changes. They're content with where they're at. They're going to play the 6-man roster with a rotating top lane next year to do that. They signed General Sniper, the solo queue legend, to play for their amateur team at 15 now that he's finally of age to do that, which I think is a really cool signing and we're not going to talk much about, but like the development of young talent that EG and 100 Thieves are doing is, I think, if EG does well this split and 100 Thieves wins it again, the other organizations should probably start looking around being like, what's going on here?
But like, I definitely would pick JoJo over Jensen, primarily because JoJo actually plays very similar champions and very similar roles to Jizuke did on this roster. So you're not changing your playstyle overly much. You just actually can play more meta champs instead of having to rely on Nico randomly in mid lane to try and bamboozle the enemy team, which will work much worse against Bjergsen, for the record. Like, a league with Bjergsen means you can't get away with some of your bullshit in mid lane. You have to play legit League of Legends. And like that's the thing with some of these retired pros coming back is you have to rely more on solid fundamentals, less on cheese, in order to really get through this.
And I see playing this younger talent in the, because we have to do the tournament at the beginning of the split, and first split is less impactful than the second half.
Anymore.
Oh, they changed it
No,
back?
they changed it. I don't know if they changed it back necessarily, but
Oh,
it's
what
like
they do
double
now?
round robin again. It's two splits of double round robin with super weeks in them, so that there's more time in the middle for like the interim tournament thing.
So are we leading with the tournament or not?
We're still
I-
lock-in
okay.
is still there.
Yeah.
Okay, so lock-in tournament I think is interesting to start off your younger talent. So that might be some of the consideration too.
Yep. Anyway, now that I've thoroughly shit on TL because I don't like either of these signings, let's talk about the one signing I'm actually excited about, which is we get Hansama and Core JJ together in a bot lane, which is the best fucking bot lane in North America, and I'm very excited to watch it. That is awesome. I'm kind of surprised Hans left, but given what has happened to Rogue, in addition to Mad, also kind of getting torn apart. Larson's got to be. Larson is the meme with the guy walking into the flaming room a little bit right now. It kind of feels like poor guy. I feel a little bad. But Hans Sama coming to TL is, I think, an excellent signing. He is like at the peak of his career. He's in the best form he's ever been, and he looked excellent at Worlds. He's looked excellent in all. I don't think he's been the problem with Rogue failing in playoffs in Europe. And to pair him with Core is just a spectacular signing, and I'm very excited to watch them play the game together.
Yeah, the definition of solid.
It'll be interesting as a disconnect for Core in my mind with how this team will play, because they've gone from like a dear God, run away from bot lane as fast as possible scenario to a oh no, everyone run to bot lane as
Like
fast
they
as
should be
possible
playing around
scenario.
bot lane next year, and whether or not they
100%.
can figure it out is going to be huge.
Because like one of the traditional truths about Bjergsen is that teams with Bjergsen, aka TSM up to this point, have only been able to win when not playing around or through mid lane. You invest to get mid lane resources, but then he doesn't play an all-in carry champ. He plays something that facilitates an AD carry or someone else to actually carry the slack, because
Hans
you
is a
invest
Draven player.
and now you have a must ban Draven pick. So like this will really be a split to showcase Core JJ being an MVP candidate again, because if he is able to swap from playing 100% roaming champions to playing in lane for an AD carry, just primarily to get the Draven player ahead in lane, like that is a huge shift, and it'll be very impressive if they manage to make it work.
I think they have to, because you don't do all this signing and then like place fourth. Like that would that would be catastrophic, right? Like I'm not just like being salty.
So this team won't place fourth. Calling it now, they're either going to win a split or they're going to absolutely shit the bed and then be bottom of the table. Because like this is, and then the reason I say this is you memed about the support staff earlier because of the Bwippo's girlfriend scenario. They've signed Giotto as their head coach, as like the other piece here, because their coaching staff also fell apart last split, and Giotto, from teams that I have seen him work with, including other super teams in EU, is a non-factor. And so I highly expect that if there is an emotional breakdown, or if this team does start losing because of various issues, it will continue to lose. There is nothing to right the ship here, except for the players themselves. Can head coach Bjergsen step it up on this team is like a really big deal. Like a lot will come down to their own internal emotional resilience, and can they keep it together.
So forgive me, where does Giotto come from as far as like his histogram?
So Giotto was on IMT before this, working with a team of mainly rookies and Xerxes, which is an interesting position for him to go to from that roster to this one, which is like the most
Previously, he
veteran
had been
team.
at Schalke.
before this, he was on Origin, both the young roster, but then also the Super Team Origin roster with Alfari, Xerxes, Upset, Nuke Duck, and I think Destiny was on that roster that came to second place. And so, like, he signed on Origin and was working with that Super Team version of Origin. Through the window when it fell apart, probably no connection to him, more just the money thing. But like, uh, but like the team did not flourish with him there, is what I would say. And the team had very clear strategical weaknesses, which they could never overcome. He came over to NA, worked with Immortals, and then I think he was actually in a very positive position in that young Immortals roster, where it was mainly about interacting with young players, building proper habits, trying to shape good patterns, which is a thing he can help with. Now he's back on a super team. He's probably going to be in a facilitator role. He's probably very experienced doing this. Like, this roster doesn't strike me as something that's different to work with than Nuke Duck Alfari Upset as far as personalities go. But like, he's not going to bring anything new to the table here. Like, this is a 100% player driven work now, and you have to accept that.
Moving on to the other critical piece of Rogue that has moved to North America, EG has signed Inspired for their jungle position. Now, I'm interested in how this is going to work. I would just went to go look in the global contract database, and Svenskeren is still signed through end of next season. So, and I think Contracts' contract is up, and he's moving.
He's moving.
So I'm interested to see if Svenskeren yet is going to move somewhere, or if they're going to have both of these players, which seems like a huge waste of Svenskeren's talents. But I do think Inspired is an upgrade here, particularly on the form he was in through the end of the year for Rogue. It's just, it feels weird that we've heard nothing about Sven. I went to go see if there's been anything around. There's been nothing around about Svenskeren.
I like how you phrase it as an upgrade. This is also, I believe, a comfortable spot for Inspired to be in. He's on a team with a powerful mid laner, weak side top laner, and then a very aggressive bot lane. This is very similar to Rogue, so hopefully his playstyle is facilitated here, and he doesn't have to try and rock the boat. Because where Inspired has suffered is when he has to adapt in a game or in a series. Fortunately, in NA, that's not an issue till playoffs, but like that's like the big thing to be on the lookout for with how this roster shakes out. It does strike me as surprising in some ways that EG did go for the import here. I think that Peter Dunn is one of the people who discovered Inspired, though, so like maybe he's just back on his homeboys. But EG developing native talent, going for the big name import here, to me is a bit of a sign that that jungle is not the position to really draw from Academy right now. NXI is already on FlyQuest and is one of the better options as far as native junglers go from like the lower tiers of play. So it's a bit of a sign. Rosethorn is not good enough, and so like when we look at more of these names that come up through the ranks, like I think that's also a sign to be on the lookout for good junglers because teams are in need of those.
I have another option that we're going to talk about later because they had an interesting move today that I don't think is going to get noticed by very many people. Anyway, moving on, we're going to have a large Europe section here just because of how things shook out. We're going to rely extensively on how much Eric watched EU Masters this year for a lot of these picks because I don't know I don't know anything about a lot of them other than that they played in EU Masters and mostly in the French League, which is apparently the place to be. So first though, let's talk a couple mid lanes, specifically the Fnatic mid lane. Fnatic has acquired Humanoid from Mad Lions, coming off of a championship-winning, MVP-winning split, to replace Niski, who now is stuck in a teamless disaster. thanks to some buyout timing shenanigans, it seems like. Originally, the rumor was that he was going to go back to C9 and back to NA, but that they have moved in a different direction. He's now kind of screwed. So, that's a bummer, but this is a this one's pretty cut and dried. This is a big upgrade for Fnatic. You just got one of the best mids in the league.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was Humanoid's path? Like, he started on...
Splice.
Yeah.
He was spliced
Slice
into
with
Mad
the team
Lions.
This is the first time he's moved.
Yeah. So...
And Humanoid was supposed to be the mid laner to come up and challenge Caps and Perks, and so now here he is challenging Caps and Perks, and I arguably is on a better team than both of them for the first time. So, wait, I guess I shouldn't say that about Vitality just yet, but like I think he's on a great team, and it'll be interesting to see how he works. He's got Yamato Cannon, I believe, was a great draw for players to go to Fnatic. I think signing Yamato last year for Fnatic was the best move this org could make, especially with their financial situation, where they're signing a coach who will draw players, and so you see that with their signings right now.
I feel bad for Niski. I'm just gonna say it. He did not deserve. He's another one that really doesn't deserve to be teamless based on how he played this past year. Like,
It ain't his fault the rest of the roster fell apart.
So the thing that I have eyes on with him is if he remains a free agent past the turn of the year. We're going to talk about them in a little bit, but I think Team BDS should probably have their eyes on him just in case. He is French, and they have built around mostly French talent. So I think that it would be worth keeping an eye on since they are bringing a player up from the develop the second tier European leagues for mid. Next, we're going to talk about Rogue shopping in Korea. They picked up Malrong from Damwon's bench to come be their starting jungler in Europe, which is fascinating. So we talked about Malrong when Damwon was struggling and working with their roster earlier this year. He really didn't look bad in the games that he played in the LCK this year, obviously, and was playing with the weird out of position Damwon lineup. So he got a good chance to show himself off and has gotten the move. He's been in the pro scene for a long time. This is not like signing some young and up and coming talent off of the bench. This is an extremely veteran, experienced player coming over to Europe. Now, it's anytime we have language barrier differences, there have been problems with that. There have been problems with stuff before, but like, I don't think this is that bad of a move for Rogue. I'm into it more than people seem to be.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to that Damwon era, but like his name from the KT Rolster or the Jin era, I can't remember which time I saw him the most, but I think it was the KT Rolster. Like, he's strong. So I think he's
a decent player and he's a veteran. Like, I'm good with it.
And you're punishing like you're punishing the European jungle scene, so he should be fine. Hot take? Question mark? Eric?
No, I talk bad about like the prospective talent in NA for junglers. EU for junglers is pretty sick. Markoon and Zanzara really showing up last split means that this is a very competitive jungler pool, where like the top of the table is pretty strong. There's only 2 or 3 junglers in this league who I think are like weak, and so it'll be pretty interesting to see how.
Blippo got away with playing jungle on a role swap the entire year last year, and Fnatic made Worlds. Yeah,
he sure did. And he actually looked really good with that, because it turns out when you put him on an engaged jungler and you have Hylissang with you, that's all you needed. And and they got away with a lot, and it was mainly because of Niski and Hilly. I would say that really made that team work. It sure wasn't Adam.
Well, so where do you place Malrong in all this?
I think, well, it's the awkward thing with Malrong is like, when you look at top of EU junglers, you have El Yoya, self-made, Razork, Yankos as the other members of top 5 with Malrong. So it's like, who of that list do you put him above in those standings? And then who do you put below him? And then, like, you have to keep in mind that Marcoon, when he entered the league most of the way through the split for Excel, like, absolutely destroyed a lot of these teams. So, what this really does is there's, it means that this is a really strong proving ground for a lot of these other junglers who are coming up from France, who are going to need to prove themselves against this list. Because, like, for Syncroft and for Zlatan, you have to actually be able to deliver.
And that's
where
that's
do you
where we're
put
going to go
him?
next. I'm going to skip over one name so we can just talk about this whole Team BDS roster. So their probably most notable signing is that they did sign Adam from Fnatic. That's been reported recently. The rest of the roster is Nuclear, formerly of Schalke, Limit, formerly of Schalke, and then Shincroft and Xmatty, both from Carmine Corp most recently. So moving up from that, the best EU second tier team into the LAC for the first time. Not really a surprise that BDS is taking players from Carmine Corp. BDS is a French-based team. That this was not a surprise. Adam is former Carmine too, is he not?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's a huge core of that, and then they appear to be the ones that have signed Grabs, which is not a move I'd heard about. But I think that's a very interesting move for Grabs to go for a mostly very young team relative to the rest of the league.
And then they picked up Aggressivu as their backup top laner. It looks like, who was from Misfits' premier team for this. And,
Yep.
Like, I think
They
this
need a
team's
new
trash.
logo.
So, like, I'm really worried about where it's going to end up. Like, it has 3 of the pieces from the Carmine Corp that people were saying were beating LEC teams like two to three splits ago. LEC teams 2 to 3 splits ago were mostly trash. So, like, that doesn't actually impress me, and I'm super worried with how they're going to be able to perform here. Nuclear Int is not an impressive player in my book. Like, I look at this roster and I see Limit and Syncroft as their best 2 players, and that really is worrisome for where this team could end up, especially with Limit falling off last year, probably due to the Schalke scenario. But, like, how well does he recover with being on a roster that's not dissolving in 6 months is going to be a big question.
I think Adam can. I think this is going to be a real test of if you can really truly play all the way around top, because it feels like Adam is pretty clearly their best player by
And
a lot.
Syncroft is used to playing around Adam in top lane. Like, that is
So,
going to be
like,
their trick. Teams will ban Olaf against them.
yep.
Um,
So I like they're going to have a playstyle that can play around. It's not one that has often worked very well for most teams, but there are a couple of LPL teams that I can think of that they would do well to watch some VODs of how to play around a big fat carry top laner and just work with them. So I'm interested to see it. It does seem like they're kind of going to be bottom of the league, which first split in the league, fair enough. It is what it is. The one I skipped over, I'll go back to now. Eric, do you know literally anything at all about Reeker, the mid lane from Berlin International Gaming, big formerly?
So big isn't very impressive in my book. From what I remember, let me double check some things, because, like, you gotta remember how this big team worked. Was this the team with?
Is that really how you spell his name?
RKR?
Yeah. Reeker?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool.
Okay. So, yeah, so I think he was the carry on this roster pretty definitively, and they did do pretty well at EU Masters. I'm not going to have his champion pool handy, but like, as far as things go, he's probably a better signing than a lot of the other, like, question mark ones. I'm super worried that people drew too heavily from France, and so going for a player from a different league makes a lot of sense. And I kind of trust Mad's talent scouting even without Peter Dunn to figure this out. They found Elyoya, they got Elyoya, now they're getting RKR. I don't think RKR is going to be better than Humanoid, at least for a year.
Big, spicy.
And I don't think he's going to be better than some of these others. Like, if like mid lane is also stacked in EU this split. And so, because like with Perks coming back, it's Perks, Humanoid, Caps, Larson, Nuke Duck, Vethio, and then there's like 3 who we can probably shit on. So I'd put him like, top 6 is kind of where I would put RKR with going into this. And that ain't bad, I guess, is the end state.
So, moving on from them, any thoughts at all about Kabi moving from Misfits to Astralis?
I think Kabe is like the so ADC is the weak link to me in EU. And it's a lot of weak side ADCs. X Maddie is a weak side ADC. So Kabe will perpetually hold on to his job longer than he should, as far as this goes. It'll be interesting to see him on Astralis because he and White Knight will have to be the carries on that roster. White Knight really stepped up last year. He only played one champion though, Lee Sin. So we'll have to see how Astralis manages to win games, especially with them losing Magifelix, who had been there Magifelix was secret OP in EU is the thing people don't understand. He never was a top 5, top 6 mid laner, but he'd consistently do good enough in lane and then play quirky and then do a lot of damage in team fights. And that's all you need, really, is you just need a Magifelix who has no expectations and can show up and just deliver consistent deeps. So without Magifelix on this roster, with Kabi and White Knight as your pillars, Kabi has to look good on this team, and I don't like that as a concept, especially with Promiscu, who's a total flop.
Okay. Same question, but Neon moving from Schalke to Misfits.
I think it's a bit of an upgrade, especially with Vethio and Hirit having a year more of experience, and them re-signing Vethio and Hirit is the true thing that matters for this roster. And Vander, because Vander's their shot caller, so you're holding onto your good shot calling, you're holding onto your powerful solo laners, you're looking pretty good. They should make playoffs. Expecting more than making playoffs might be a stretch, but they have some good core for this roster. I think Schlotten's pretty good. Schlottan, I think, yeah.
Great
Schlottan and
from the Misfits premier squad in the LFL to the Misfits main squad.
Yeah, because Schlottan's pretty good. Syncroft is pretty good as far as these junglers go that are coming up.
Do you know anything about either Unforgiven from SK Prime moving to Mad or Flacked moving from Mad Madrid to G2?
Targamas is the player going up for G2 who I know more about. He's been around longer. None of them have really impressed me that much. Like I said, most of the bot laners from EU Masters are disappointing. And that's, it could be just because the fact that they show up in a game against Gadget or other G2 bot laner of legend, who's down in who's down in ERLs, Hjarnan. They get locked in a game against Gadget or Hjarnan and they suffer. They really do, and it's not because Gadget or Hjarnan are mechanically superior to these guys. It's that you have the threat of Karthus or Heimerdinger over your head as you go into this game, and then you look like a complete moron. And so these ADCs tend not to impress me, and the ones who did impress me, Karzi, are already in the league. So
now, how do you think Reckless is going to do playing against Jarnan again, playing for Carmine Corp?
So Carmine Corp is now going to be like a super team again, and they should win again in EU Masters. Just for the record, like
They're playing two longtime veteran LEC players.
They're just trying to get that check. They got the next wave bounty
They're
hunters.
playing Cabo and Reckless in second tier League of Legends.
So Syncroft and Cabo as a duo, like straight up won EU Masters. So like this is a team that is like incredibly potent. And then the fact that Cabo decided to remain at KC rather than sign for an LEC team is a statement about, first off, how well he's being paid and how well he's being treated on this team, and also like how much now these players recognize that playing for a really good ERL team is better than playing for some trash tier LEC team. So like that's going to be the big divide you see shape up here.
Clearly,
is that
KC has the funding too, because there's word there was seven figure money for Reckless too.
Yeah, as they paid them 1 million buyout. They're paying him it's like 2 million over 2 years or 1 million over 2 years. So like it's good money to dumpster teams in France. If Reckless loses games, that's hilarious.
It's the end of his career.
Yeah.
If he loses games for this,
he shouldn't, because like, man, is he really good? But like he's gonna be up against like Woolite, Reckless v Woolite in the ERL scene. Really funny.
So, last ADC thought, because these kind of all got stuck together. Comp moving from Vitality to Rogue.
Comp's pretty good.
It's going to be a different team dynamic for Rogue than having Hans down there.
Yes.
Yeah, like Comp is Comp is more of an Ezreal player. So you're going from a really strong like Draven player who like Draven Aphelios, really aggressive in lane, to like an Ezreal player who like is still like controlling and pretty strong. Like when Vitality upgraded from Comp to Crown Shot last year, it was like a upgrade more for like game knowledge and leadership, not necessary for hands. And because like Comp was the best player on Vitality's shit tier roster from the year before.
Yep.
So like this is not a bad signing, and Comp is definitely better than the ERL AD carries. So like you have to like keep that in mind with this move.
Do you know anything at all about Matt? What is it? Astralis' new mid laner, Dehor.
No, not a bit.
Played for Fnatic Rising. Apparently, only actually went pro in summer split of last year.
So he's another power move. Yeah, I won't know as much about these players who move super fast like Elyoya did. Like Fnatic Rising did pretty well in EU Masters last year a couple of times. I'm trying to remember. I watched their series. They got pretty far. Didn't they make finals? I think they made finals.
I think so. It was one of the higher tier, like, so at least quarterfinals. Because I remember seeing that pop up on Twitch and stuff. So
yeah,
they were hyping it up pretty big.
Their mid laner looked pretty good, I think. It was they were really coordination based, where it really felt like they were winning as a unit. So it's hard to tell how good he was playing individually in some of those games. I had it on in the background.
But getting a hotshot up and coming mid that slots well into a team comp, that has value.
It'll be interesting. Like, there's zero expectations for this roster. So as far as like players who can come in with low expectations, it's a mid laner for Astralis.
Last little Europe bit here. Let's talk about two other pieces of the G2 roster. So they keep Yankos and Caps, add Flact and ADC, and then add Targamas, who Eric's talked a little bit about from Carmine Corp at support, and signed Broken Blade from TSM then Schalke to go to the top lane to replace Wonder. How do you feel about the new pieces of the G2 roster?
Targamas is pretty good. I think that like Carlos has talked a lot of hype about their bot lane's performance. He mentioned that they were stomping like certain world champions in scrims. That seems very questionable to me. But like the point being is that he has a lot of faith in them, and I think Targamas is veteran enough now to like be able to actually do well. I really like the Broken Blade signing. I think that if you have Yankos still on your roster, you want the First Blood King to have lanes he can gank for. And even though Schalke fell to pieces last split, Broken Blade still is a great laner to gank for. He's very good with a gold advantage, and he likes playing champions who tilt top lane. So it's a good decision there. I like how he built this roster. We'll see if the bot lane plays out. They definitely have a dearth in late game shot calling and map pressure. This is no longer a great decision making team on splits on Baron versus inhibitor kind of plays. So they still are a great 1-3-1 team. So you have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, Broken Blade, even from the TSM, always has been really solid and great in the split push and great in lane. So I think there's a lot of options with this G2 roster. So I think it's just them finding their look, their G2, that whatever this iteration is, and then I guess how well Black turns out.
All right, we're gonna move. I'm gonna just swap a couple things up here so we do all of our EU moves.
There we go.
Real
We're
quick.
doing it.
Gilius moving from Schalke to SK. Hooray for Gilius.
Hooray
Hooray for SK having a real jungler again. Thank God. Treats back in bot lane where he belongs. Actual jungler who also brings some shot calling and decision making for early game. Great. That's what this team needed. I don't know if it's enough with how some of the other teams are stepping up.
Who are they running mid?
It looks like Certus right now, who I think was from SKP. Was he SKP or he was somewhere else? Or
Got nothing.
they're on an ERL mid laner, but they're keeping Genax, which is great. Genax has looked really good in top lane. I like that decision. Treats is really solid, so they have a really solid supporting core, which is the problem because their carry roles are not good.
Right.
And so this is all the upgrades they needed for their last split team, but it's that same team. And so will they be good enough with these with Jezu in the starting five?
I think you just threw shade at Nuke Duck for no reason, first of all.
I didn't talk about XL.
Oh wait, no. You were talking about who were you talking about? I forgot.
SK.
SK. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the host who I've never heard of. Anyway, let's talk about XL now because Finn is moving back to Europe from CLG. God bless his soul to go to XL.
Great upgrade.
Yep.
I'm pretty excited for that. Kry's only looked good on Cho'Gath, and as much as I love that, their games where he was on Cho'Gath were some of the biggest travesties in League of Legends. So it's nice for them to have an actual top laner who I think is actually somehow grown from time on CLG. So we'll see if
the only bright spots on the team.
We'll see if this
waiting
does okay.
for shit storm to.
Yeah.
Now it's would you rather have the Forged in Fire Finn back from NA or would you rather have Wonder, who I think today was now almost confirmed that he will be Fnatic's new top laner, going the opposite way of the traditional farm team for G2.
So I'm really hoping that Wonder working with Yamato Cannon is a good combo. That's the big thing here. I'm much more excited about the other elements of Fnatic. However, if Wonder makes a resurgence, it's good. This is also a team where Wonder doesn't have to be great. This doesn't need to be a 1-3-1 roster like G2 did. Wonder can play teamfight tanks, just play Scion an entire split, and this could still be a top 2 team. So that's one of the good things about how this Fnatic roster is looking right now is that you don't need Wonder to have his insane counter picks in EU, and don't expect for world success. It's not Wonder would need to step up more, but in EU, they should be really solid.
All right, next call. Cadril potentially coaching Vitality. I only have one thought about this. It makes me sad for the cast.
Yep.
He's been such a good addition to the casting desk. I don't want him to go back.
Did you
The
catch
jokes
the-
about Cadril's playoff curse with this Vitality roster are very good, though.
Did you catch the clip of him live streaming the announcement from the Dot show?
I've seen it. I heard it was good.
It's really good. Yeah, I kind of like it because you're picking him up mainly as a strategic and analytical coach. You're not picking him up as a you're not picking him up to lead the team. You're picking him up to facilitate Perk Self-Made Alfari, and that's a better role to have as a coach for this team, in my opinion, is a facilitating role that brings a strategic mindset to maybe help them recenter.
We already talked about Cabochard. We're going to talk about Pabu. Because Pabu is moving from the LCO to an ERL team. Which I think is fascinating as an eligible player
Interesting.
in the jungle.
A lot of the really good ERL junglers have been bumped up.
But we already talked about the weakness of the NA jungle pool, and as a NA resident player, I think it's interesting that he's taking the EU option and that an ERL team is using an import slot on him.
So, while true, ERL teams really don't use import slots that much. There have been a few, but not many. And so, this is a really interesting move. Big is an interesting team. They've built strange rosters in the past. I assume that they're going to be building a strange roster with Pabu. We'll see if he sticks on there long. There's a lot of movement in ERLs. So hopefully it works out and he gets to get some reps in there, because going through that would be a great way to get into either NA or into LEC even as an option. That seems weird to me. I think he's a great signing for getting far in EU Masters, which is probably what the move was for.
Potentially. All right, we've made it to the NA portion of the show, so Steven can talk again.
Yay! Maybe.
Maybe. Kind of doubt it. So I'm shifting these around quick. We've already been talking for a really long time, so I'm going to organize our thoughts a little bit, and we're going to talk one team at a time, even though we've already hit some of the big names. So we're going to talk about, first start with Immortals, who are keeping a lot of their core together, but are adding Turtle from CLG back to their team. I think he's returning to Immortals. And then PoE is moving from TSM to IMT. So what do we think about the addition of Turtle and PoE to Immortals?
That's some foundation to the rest of the team, I guess, and some founded talent. Brand equity.
I mean, PoE is a definitive upgrade over Insanity. They're very similar playstyle and champion pool players. I'm really nervous about this roster because, one of the things that Raze did bring to this team was the X factor of just randomly locking Draven into a game, and you don't have that anymore with Purple. So there's no more cheese on this roster except for Xerxes. And Xerxes can't afford to cheese in this jungle meta as much, at least from what we've seen so far. If it's a cheesy jungle meta, or if it's another year of Rumble jungle, fantastic. This roster is exactly what you want. But I'm kind of worried about I'm kind of worried about the ceiling on this team. So their goal should be to make playoffs.
Which I think is realistic looking around. We talked a little bit about the NA playoff changes. They are still taking 8 teams to playoffs in summer and 6 in spring. So there's only 2 teams that don't make playoffs in summer. So it's definitely an achievable goal by the end of the year. Yeah, it's just, you have extremely huge amounts of experience to add. This is a very experienced team.
It's a lot of years. Are they starting with the dragons, the new dragons in the split?
I don't think we know enough to know that yet.
Because jungle could be chaotic if they're as insane as they look. So you might have tapped onto something with He might be able to pull some weird stuff to, to achieve some control or something.
Bigger concern I have about IMT is that Gyoto was like the foundation for the rookie players in this roster and was their coach, and they haven't talked about who their new coach is yet, as far as I'm aware.
Yep.
So like, this team needs a coach. For the record, this is not like Vitality
Player-led.
where they can coach themselves, or Liquid. Like you need a coach for this roster.
All right, let's talk about C9, who have been busy. So C9, Fudge is moving from top to mid and has signed a contract extension until 2025. So Fudge is the future of this team. Whatever role he ends up being in, he is the future of this team. Period. They have added to this. They are adding Berserker, who is an ADC who played for T1's Challengers team in the LCK Challengers League. They're adding Winsome, who played for Shadow Batlika in the LCKCL at supports, in addition to promoting Isles from C9 Academy to C9 proper. And the signing I'm most interested in, they are signing Summit from Live Sandbox of the LCK to be their new top laner. So it's a lot of moving pieces around. It's two different bot lanes from what it appears, because they are keeping Sven, as far as we know, as well. So there's a good chance that they'll have a Korean-speaking bot lane and an English-speaking bot lane. And they've also been rumored to be pursuing LS to coach them. So, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of Korean involvement. Eric, what do you think about what this team is doing?
I'm super nervous about it. This could be great, or it could be an absolute travesty. I like the decision, if you are going for this all Korean bot lane, to keep the Sven Isles combo, because like Blabber is not a player who I expect to thrive where he is not speaking the dominant language in a roster. So I almost feel like Schernfire is the play here. And which is really a strange thing to say. But Summit's very strong. The Berserker Winsome bot lane. This has LS's fingerprints all over it. LS being a huge Fudge fan, in addition to the rest of these signings. So even if they don't sign him as a coach, it's very clear that he consulted in building this roster. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm not a fan of these super multilingual rosters, for the record. Like, if you're going this far, you should have a jungler who speaks Korean at this point, and just be a pure Korean NA resident roster somehow. Is where I would rather be.
So to flip it around, the language thing is a consideration. Summit is fucking good.
Oh yeah.
He is really, really, really good. I did not think he would leave Korea for NA. He immediately is in the conversation for best top laner in the league. So how Fudge adapts, in terms of just player skill, how Fudge adapts to mid lane, I think is going to be very interesting. He already has shown some proficiency on mid lane-ish picks with like Aurelia and Jace being around, both of which have been played in mid before. Very interested to see how mages look for him. That's going to be something to watch right from the jump of the season if mages are in meta. Or if C9's going to do some weird LS bullshit. Because that's when you start bringing LS into the team. Like, the LS question is, number one, is he going to have full pickman control? And number two, is he going to leave Korea to do it? Because I do not think we're not in a place anymore in League where remote coaching is a thing that seems like it's a good idea or will work. And LS is deeply, deeply attached to Korea. He's lived there for a very long time. He speaks the language fluently. He loves it as much as anything and has been very clear about that. So a consulting role is one thing, but I don't think he will leave Korea to take a coaching job in the LCS. If he does, that will be super interesting to watch, particularly if he's actually going to test out all of his ideas and if the roster is going to fully commit to his ideas. because he does have a different mind for a lot of things in the game. We've seen the tier list, we've had the conversations about what it looks like. It would be a wonderful experiment to see what it is. I remember when he was one of CLG's coaches, 5 years ago, and part of why it didn't work was the remote experience with it. So if it works, I'm interested to see what the terms of the arrangement are.
So the big thing though to keep in mind as far as like the LS's pick thing, like one of the benefits of signing a mostly Korean roster along with that is that Korean players are much more willing to follow a coach in pick ban strategy. So if LS says play this champion, they will play that champion. Blabber once again is the oddball out, where he has a very set play style. He has very specific champions. He's probably going to be less able to adapt to whatever the nonsense is. So, like, yet again, to me, like the big question mark here is like, is this roster built with Blabber in an equitable spot? It's kind of actually the same thing as the perk signing, only for every other role instead of mid lane, where it's like, how does this work with your MVP jungler? And I have questions there.
Yep, and the fact they sure do have a Korean-speaking jungler on their academy team is notable.
Yes, like that's what I was saying. Like,
Yeah,
it's
notable.
like they might just be playing like the Korean roster plus Fudge. Is like a thing to expect here.
Yeah, the jokes about Fudge and Blabber hopping on the Duolingo are strong, though. Meanwhile, Dignitas,
Did some stuff.
the blue signing is trash. I hate that so much.
The entire roster is basically trash. Like poor River. Like,
Yeah.
Like, Bio didn't
can't
even
believe
play last year, right?
he didn't. No, I can't believe they signed him. Like, this is an absolute travesty of a roster. Like, Neo's good, for the record. Neo and Fake God are pretty good. Like, they're decent NA resident players to have in your 5. But then, like, the fact that they went back to Bio, who's not great. Like, it's kind of like signing Smoothie at this point. Like, if you have Bio or Smoothie in your roster, you have admitted defeat in NA. And then they have Blue, who was bottom 2 mid laner LEC, and then they have, but then they signed River. So they've signed a jungler who's great at playing around mid lane. He's come off a roster with Maple, and before playing with Maple, he was on a different team in Taiwan that had a great mid laner who played Assassins who he played around. Now he's playing with an Azir one trick. So like this is not good. This is a very poor roster building. Natron, if like he's responsible for building this roster, better have some big brain vision that we can't see. But it's very flawed, just like at a very cursory glance for what's happening here.
It's sketch.
Like,
Did they run out of money? Because it looks like they ran out of money, and are trying to like fake it. This looks like we told you we're gonna try and win, so we have to sign import players, but we're also bankrupt. So like, what do we do? Kind of deal.
it's bad. It's not good. Meanwhile, like, if I'm going to flame rosters, like the contrast here is Golden Guardians signed Lost from TSM, brought Ale as their pull out of retirement for support, and signed Pride Stalker, most recently of Mao's Esports, but who has played in the LEC, to be their jungler as an import piece. Eric, how do you feel about the Golden Guardians polls?
I really like Pride Stalker. I really like Lost. I have serious doubts about Ale. I think the goal is to have Ale for teamfight shot calling and for late game decision making, which is what he has been on rosters for in NA in the past. It's very questionable. I'm wondering what an arrow is going for here, because like he's worked with an arrow before, so maybe an arrow is like the options are slim. Is it like Ale or Azazel? Is kind of like what I would see as the question mark here, because like you can't get Isles out of C9, especially with this like Korean versus English split that they're going for. So like, if you can't get Isles, you can't get Destiny because he's locked in at Immortals. Like, who do you go for at support? And like, and so
Zayzal
maybe
probably
Ale
would
was
have
the
been
decision from
good.
that. I
Better than Ale, my opinion.
Yes, however, Inero is probably less familiar with working with him, is the thing. So
I
like, Inero is
guess.
sticking with somebody he knows who's older, and is my understanding. And it is
Valid.
strange, but like, you know, that's what this looks like to me.
Well,
Brightstalker is
and
very
he's
good.
also like there was the break of last year, but he was with the Golden Guardians organization for a while. He predates Inero with that organization, I'm pretty sure. He first played for them in 2018, which at this point is a while ago. So, like, it's someone that coach knows, it's someone that the organization knows. We'll see what the play's up to.
Yeah, that'll be 4 years.
Yeah, it's a chunk of time with the little stint in Dignitas in the middle, but like it's a lot of time.
If the plan is to have Ale really coordinate with giving experience to Chime, Lost, and Prismal, your three like really strong up and coming young players in bot lane, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep.
Ollie's also a good Bard player, so now you're putting Chime with another good Bard player as far as like your development roster. I think there's a lot to work with here.
Yep.
I do think that this roster can win more games than either Dig or Immortals. So,
and shouts to Niles, who is retiring from professional League of Legends only after just getting here. It sounds like he's engaged and has taking for different priorities. So good for him. Go off.
Yeah.
We already talked about Gyoto. We're done talking about TL. Eric, do you know anything about Tukoil from Game Ward?
No, absolutely nothing. So,
The one LFL signing in NA.
yeah, like he's apparently been another player that eyes on as far as like moving up to LEC, but then he ended up coming over here instead, which is interesting. Like players not in Kate Carmine Corp from the LFL or Misfits Premier, I'm not going to be as familiar with because those are the two teams I watched the most of in EU Masters. So I think it's interesting. We'll see how he holds up. There's a very young mid lane pool here for him. So like, unlike some of the LEC mid laners who I'm like, how are they going to hold up against, Caps, Humanoid, Perks, Nuke Duck, Here it's like, all right, how many mid laners can Takuya beat in lane? And it's like, Fudge,
It's so funny to
Fudge,
me.
Blue, Palify, maybe a Blaze, Jojo. Like, he could be a top 5 mid laner here, like, very easily. So it's it's a different matter.
It's a wild
for
west.
how this looks. Yeah.
FlyQuest also acquiring Afro from Dignitas for their bottom lane.
I really like that. It's a reunion with him and Johnson. Johnson looked worse without Afromu.
Yep.
So, like, this is a great decision. I think Afromu is in the tier now officially of veteran supports who make ADCs look good. So even if Afro looks like trash, if his ADC looks good, it's because of Afromu. Because like he made Neo look good, he made Johnson look good. Here he is back with Johnson. Like I'm expecting that to be a maybe not like top tier, but a good bottom lane in the league as far as how performances are going to shape out.
We're not going to bother to talk about contracts until there's actually any more team around him. CLG has literally no one but him right now, so we're not going to bother yet.
Well, there's rumors that they're getting Luger and Poom from 100 TA, which is like a good academy bot lane, and it's an academy bot lane promoted together.
Yep.
I'm not very fond of Poom. Luger's pretty good. So like NA has a lot of really good ADCs who are up and coming with Luger, with Prismal on GG. Like there are some strong players coming up here to make tactical look bad. So I'm expecting like that to have a lot of movement. There's other rumors for their solo lanes, but like the point is this is going to be a super young roster, which is really good for CLG if it continues
It's
along
what
that
they need
train.
to do.
Because like at least that way they can rebuild and they don't look like idiots for spending a lot of money on Broxta. And so like hopefully this puts them in a good spot. They also brought on ThinkCard, who I think is really great with building up players. I don't like him for like winning, but I like him for like helping players like find themselves and be in losing positions.
Do you want to feel sad about young rosters? What year do you think contracts debuted in the LCS?
It was like 2016, yeah.
I think it's 2016.
2017.
Yeah.
So this is the year 5, 6.
He's the most veteran player on the roster right now.
Yep.
Which is and like he still looks damn good. So
Yeah,
like,
he can look great.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, speaking of tactical getting shit on, let's talk about TSM. TSM acquires a bot lane that is tactical and Mickey, which is interesting.
Yeah? I don't know what that's supposed to...
To
it's
be
aggressive.
fair, I like
Aggressive.
Mickey X. I like Mickey X better with bad AD carry. And so this is Mickey X with a worse AD carry. So I like that. I still think this team is trash. It's really funny to me how they have this whole video where Bjergsen and Parth, or sorry, not Bjergsen, where Reggie and Parth are talking about, we're going to not invest as much. Of course, you're not spending $5 million to piss off Doublelift, but specifically, that's why they did it. It's like outrageous. But they're specifically like not going to spend as much money. They're going to be focusing on developing talent, blah blah blah. And it's like they signed Tactical, and they signed Mickey, and it's like, all right. And you kept Spica and Huni, so who are you developing? Oh, this potentially Korean mid lane import or potentially EU mid lane import that you're going to be bringing onto this roster? What? Come on, like there's no development here.
Yeah, who are they getting for mid?
They've talked about Fate. Do you know anything about Fate,
Yep.
David? Okay.
For Sandbox.
Okay.
Also, he was fine.
Yeah.
He is.
So,
I mean,
it's not developed. I guess who's on their academy roster that they're working on?
No one. That's the thing. That's the thing. Is TSM was a retirement home and academy last split. Sword, I think, was Sword their mid laner? Sword looked decent, but I think Sword signed with somebody else. It's bad, is what I would say. Like their org is in shambles right now. And the Doublelift Bjergsen Fiesta has only made things worse. Doublelift Reggie Fiesta is what I meant to say. Has only made everything worse. Even if they signed Chovy, this is not a top 3 team. Is my take.
Speaking of Sandbox, they're apparently going to announce a new player in 4 hours, so we're not going to be here for that. But
no.
It seems like they have to, since like all their players are getting moved to like NA or something.
Oh well, we're going to talk about them last. Ironically, the last NA signing we talked about Mythy already. We didn't talk about Mythy moving to 100 Thieves, but good for Mythy. Hooray. Vulcan. We should probably talk about Vulcan a little bit. Vulcan moves from C9 to EG. Had to go somewhere since C9 was moving in a different direction. And again, here, it's the same. This is the thing with this EG roster is I feel bad for Ignar, who still has a contract through next year and is good. Like, Vulcan's also good, but I feel bad for Ignar.
I think it's a good question of roster comp because Ignar's better at roaming out of lane. Vulcan's better at playing in lane. And so it's really a question for how do you want to approach this. I think that this EG team is now officially in top 3. And
Yep.
so you have to really, like, getting a world spot in NA is now going to be brutally difficult for some of these orgs. So I'm really curious to see if, like, I know that this year is not currently an arms race. I'm really curious to see if next year turns into another arms race. Because, like, somebody who really wants it is going to lose their world spot to, like, EG or like if this world's is like EG 100T and like TL, like C9 and TSM not going, that's ludicrous. And you know, from these rosters right
It
now, it
could
looks
be.
likely. Yeah.
Pretty easily.
And we could even see a world where that TL, God forbid, but that TL team doesn't mesh, and then it's like 100 Thieves, EG, and like I don't know, something silly like
Golden
Dig,
Guardians.
Golden Guardians.
Yeah. Like if you're going silly, it would, like, my silly option would be Golden Guardians as like the sleeper for getting to Worlds. I don't think Dig, Immortals, CLG, or FlyQuest is in that running for that.
Okay, very last. There has been basically no news from the LCK, but Sandbox did sign a new mid laner. They got Closer from T1, who I thought would have been an interesting move for a Western team if they wanted to sign a up-and-coming mid laner from T1's ludicrously large development system. The T1 rumors is that they're releasing a whole bunch of their developmental roster people and are making them available, which is going to end up like half of the LCK is going to be former T1 trainees, which, you know, it already kind of is. It's just going to get worse. But we end with my favorite, and by favorite I mean least favorite free agency signing I've ever seen. Y'all remember Sword from Griffin? The cataclysmically bad top laner
Yeah. Worse than Doran? Yeah.
that they got rid of, and before they collapsed, he's coming out of retirement to sign for Fred and Freon.
Wow.
That's worse than the blue signing. That's the one.
I want to continue to meme about like LCK general management because they're clearly new to this franchise thing and have no clue what they're doing. But on the flip side, like, you know, every LCK team, like, you know, except for Hanwha Life Esports, made it to quarters.
So they got way closer than they should have been.
So it's like, so like I want to meme, but you know they won a lot.
There's a lot of results there to argue.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe Sword is secret OP. You know, maybe we don't.
He learned his lesson.
Maybe we don't actually know anything. You know.
Hyperbolic time chamber for like 18 months. That's what he did during COVID. Is he actually got good at the game?
Yeah, he got stuck and just played Korean solo queue for like 24 hours a day, and then now, hey, look, here he is. Like, I wonder, gosh, man, you know.
Now there are many rumors from the LCK, but nothing is locked in except for those two, and I don't think even those two are locked in yet. Like there is nothing out there. There are a lot like the big Dom one names are all free agents right now. Chovy and Deft are free agents. There's a lot of contract talks. The rumor is that Showmaker and therefore probably a lot of the Dom 1 core is going to re-sign with Dom 1. The rumor is that Showmaker turned down meetings with other teams just to talk to Dom 1, even though he is in free agency. We know nothing about who's talking to Chovy and Deft. We know nothing. We know that there are at least two teams talking to Teddy in the LCK, who is definitely a free agent, is definitely leaving T1. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Afrika dropped their entire team. Nongshim dropped their entire team. Nongshim and a couple other teams have accused other teams in the league of tampering and have documentation of it, so that's going to be a giant mess.
Spice.
Yeah,
First-
so like, yeah, Nongshim
First year
has
as a franchised league, let's go full on tampering
Oh yeah,
allegations.
no, it like Nongshim posted a statement and everything. It's a giant mess. Like we'll see what the league's gonna do about it if they're gonna do anything. But like Nongshim currently have only Peanut on their roster after the excellent summer they had, which is very disappointing.
Man, so like what a difference, right? Because in NA, it's like all the team owners are like super buddies, except for like one person who they hate. And so it's like there's the one person who gets the stick. They just like beat up on that one person until they get kicked out, but then everyone else, like Reggie and Steve and
Jack.
are all just like super friends, and they like they back each other up, they go to bat for each other, they have very similar takes, and here's LCK, and it's like boom, tampering allegations, let's go. um uh
Out of the gates.
yeah.
Messy, messy, messy.
Buy
Yeah,
merch.
the statement from the Nongshim Twitter account. We have noticed some evidence stating that there were attempts of tampering toward our players. Therefore, we are taking procedures to deal with this matter. Both direct and indirect conversations with other team staff, sending offers with the expiration of current players' current contracts, giving information on the potential roster once players arrive. We are very upset and are going through the necessary procedures to deal with the situation. The most active and efficient methods are being prepared to cope with the situation, protect the fairness of the LCK.
Bark.
So we'll have to see if it actually means anything, but that's going on in the background of no real movement in Korea yet. Meanwhile, the LPL, we're not going to see anything for months. This is how this works. Check back around Christmas. They might have roster moves done by then. The only thing we know for sure is Nuguri's leaving FBX, and he's probably going back to Korea. Probably going to rejoin Damwon. No one would be surprised.
So speaking of messy and tampering,
Steven.
Buy merch. Buy the merch. You can be messy and tamper with our merch. But we're not affiliated with your messy tampering, so don't do that. But also buy the merch for Christmas. Christmas
Getting
time.
in any tampering accusations?
I'm tampering with your willingness to buy merch because you want to now because I tampered with you and now you want to buy the merch from the Funky store, funky.store. You should buy merch there because I tampered.
Great segue, Eric. Couldn't have been better. Eric, what you been playing?
Been back in League with this getting ready for the off season. Had a couple of good games. I've been playing a lot of Ziggs bot lane. I do some nice damage, and I stay far away from all the champions people like to play in the off season, which want to pop me.
Steven, what you been playing?
I started Rune King. I'm terrible at RPGs and the combat system is confusing.
So I watched Medic stream the first hour of it, and I'm interested in it, but I think I'm just gonna continue to wait for more opinions on it. I think I understand how the combat system works, but I'm sure it's gonna get more complicated as the game goes further.
Yeah, I really want the story like this. I usually don't get into RPGs just because like they don't engage me. So this one automatically engages me because it's lore and story. But woo lad, the combat system isn't like a normal RPG. Like I'm coming like my RPG experience is Pokemon and like Yu-Gi-Oh! Falsebound Kingdom. Like
Are those an RPG or not? Give us your answer in the comments below.
yes, is it an RPG?
It reminds me of Final Fantasy X, but with more intrigue in its turn-basedness. Because you can, similarly to 10, you can do stuff to affect how fast or slow your actions go off, and different actions have different speeds. Like it feels a lot like 10 to me from what I saw.
So it looks a lot like and I've been holding off on playing it because I have another RPG in the tank right now, but it looks a lot Battle Chasers Night War.
It is that game. It's just skin.
Okay,
it's the same company.
League of
Yeah.
Legends, which is
Okay.
the-
One of my buddies was like, "That looks like Battle Chase." I'm like, yeah, he's like, who made it? I was like, Airship something. And he's like, that's Airship Syndicate. It's the same game. I was like, yeah, I think Riot just went to a whole bunch of places like, we like your game, make it Riot and have fun.
Yeah, Riot
Here's
Forge.
money.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Lots of money.
Yeah.
Makes so much money.
We'll make
Yeah.
beautiful money together. Just take your game, put a League of Legends character on it. Here, you could pick. We have lots of them. Put a character on it.
I do like that concept of
Yeah.
using engines more, because like a lot of companies have like built engines and then trashed them after one title. This is a great way to take your engine and then apply it to Riot branded stuff with like minimal fallout. So it's neat.
Convergence looks awesome.
yeah.
I want to play that real bad. That's more something I'm capable of playing. I think I'm really just too stupid for an elaborate RPG.
I have been playing primarily Teamfight Tactics this week.
Another game I'm too stupid for.
I like this new set because there's a lot, like it feels like there's more going on than there have been in the past sets with the augments and stuff. So people haven't fully like meta slaved themselves yet, so I can just kind of do whatever I want. And I haven't ever had this good of results ever playing TFT. I've only gotten not top 4 like twice since the set came out last week, which is stupid. And I haven't locked any comps that I particularly like in either. I got what was the I was literally just doing a dumb comp to try and do some of the missions they did, and I got second place because the game was nice and gave me a stack Jace, and Jace is really good. Turns out. And the Spotlight thing is really cool, and I like it. Getting all of the augments that it gives you more spotlights, and then it spreads your spotlight to your people around your spotlight, so it makes your stuff do more damage. It's pretty cool. I'm into it. I even played a game of ranked TFT.
I was about to say, are you going to get gold this season because of TFT?
I have played one game of ranked, and I am provisionally Iron 1.
Hey, let's go. You're ascending.
We'll have to see if I actually play any more than the one game of it. But I'm eventually going to start losing. And eventually going to have to like maybe actually look at comp guides, or I could just keep doing whatever I want because there's a lot of options and it's pretty fun. At this point, I'm just going to be spamming the sisters comp until I get the stupid achievement for it, which is stupid. The end. Stupid achievements. Anyway, we've plugged the merch, we've plugged the videos. Steven, you got any fresh videos in the tank for people to go watch after they're done with this marathon?
Yes, we have Halo, because it's the 20th anniversary of Halo, so we're playing Halo. Now is the time to play Halo. Because we didn't have, yes, the original Halo, OG Halo, Xbox 2001 release, because we were busy the last 20 years. Me and Eric also recorded Pokemon trading card game, so make sure you're caught up to that, because I believe that'll air after this run, so that'll be a whole new episode of Pokemon trading card games. It's not on motorcycles. I thought Eric was gonna do a trading card game on motorcycles, so that's what took so long to do that, because I was recovering emotionally from not being on a motorcycle while playing trading card games.
Yeah, me and Eric starting Friday or shortly thereafter are going to be playing some Pokemon too. So probably not going to have too many videos of that, but there's going to be some Pokemon to be played.
Yes.
Because Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl comes out on Friday. So there's Pokemon to be played. There's TV to be watched. We're going to talk about Arcane next week.
Yep.
Once the whole shebang is out. We might even have a guest friend of the program on to help us talk about Arcane. Now that we've talked about all the free agency ever, because surely nothing else will happen now.
Impossible.
Can't possibly happen. So this has been Reaction Time. We're done for the week. It's been a long one. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll see you next time.